when something urgent is happening, we don't rise to the occasion. We sink to the level of our training. And that philosophy, which I believe goes way back, it's a Greek philosophy, and that idea it speaks to the importance of preparation before you do anything. So before we go in and fight a fire, when a recruit is coming to the academy, they get 13 weeks of very intense training. Before you become a paramedic, you go to school for almost a year to become a paramedic. The things that we're asking firefighters to do takes a lot of brains, but the execution on the fireground seems brainless because they're so good at it. They jump off, grab tools, throw an air pack, kick a door, drag hoses and squirt water. Like, it all happens so seamlessly, but there's a lot of choreography and planning and training that goes into the smoothness of that operation.
Welcome back to the briefing room. One of the things we love about this podcast is exploring leadership through different lenses, because leadership isn't confined to boardrooms or executive teams. Some of the most powerful leadership lessons come from the places that demand the most under pressure. Today, we're joined by Assistant Chief Rayne Gray of Buckeye Fire, a veteran of the fire service whose career also includes time at Phoenix Fire. And over the years, Rayne has had to evolve his leadership style again and again, from the firehouse to the fireground to the chief's office. Rayne also hosts his own podcast, Fireground Fitness. What makes this conversation especially interesting is that the show didn't stay what it set out to be. It started out as a conversation about staying physically prepared for a long career in the fire service, and it became something much bigger. Today, we're diving into Rayne's career, how leadership has changed for him over the years, what happens when something you build turns into something you didn't expect, and why sometimes the right move is simply to start and let the thing become what it needs to be. So, Rayne, welcome to the briefing room.
Hey, Michelle, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah.
I'm super excited to be here.
I am so excited for this one. So we kind of ask people, what are they listening to? What's on their playlist? So I cannot wait to hear what's on your playlist.
Well, the last thing I listened to, and this is really quite silly, was neural beats. And it's just what it sounds like. It's just a tone of different tones, and it helps with concentration.
Okay.
And I know that sounds ridiculous, but when I was trying to write an article, and I needed to just concentrate, and I couldn't. There was so much things going on around me, so I had to put on my noise canceling headphones and listen to some neural beats.
That's what it's called.
Yeah.
Is there a whole station dedicated to it?
Well, it's on Spotify, so I don't remember.
Did it help?
It's that, and when I'm trying to relax, is Bad Bunny.
Okay. Wait, neural beats or Bad Bunny?
Bad Bunny is what I go to when I'm trying to have fun and relax.
Okay.
Like, get outside of the writing piece.
But does it help? Does it speed it up?
Yeah, it's fun. Bad Bunny's fun. You don't know Bad Bunny?
No, I know Bad Bunny. I don't know neural beats.
Neural beats is not fun. It is to help you concentrate.
All right, you heard it here first. If you're struggling concentrating, neural beats on Spotify, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, you've spent decades in the fire service, including with Phoenix Fire. How many years did you do there?
I did 21 there, and I did 3.5 in Sun City West.
Okay.
And then I've just had my 3-year anniversary in Buckeye.
Congratulations.
So I've right around 28 years in the business.
So what's kept you in it?
Well, I mean, I came on this job because I wanted to do something meaningful and provide service to the community. And when I discovered that I could, do something with my hands, I could do something with my brain, I could provide service, a meaningful, contribution to the community, I was like, sounds like a great job. Yeah. And then it, became something that I really enjoyed and was, fairly good at. And so I decided to dig in, and it just became a passion as well as a career path.
Well, that's awesome. So if someone watched a crew operate on scene and then sat in on your executive leadership meetings, what similarities would surprise them?
Well, that's funny. We like to poke fun at one another. So the first thing you would see is firefighters being firefighters. We tease a little bit. We like to play. We like to have fun. And they also see when it's time to get down to business, firefighters can get very serious very quickly. So when we're on the fireground, there's a time to play and there's a time for immediate response to orders, if you will. And that chain of command and that chain of authority crosses right over into the boardroom where there's somebody's in charge of the meeting, and then there's organization to it. The difference is, and this is probably part of a larger discussion, but the difference for me is that on the fireground, we have an emergency, we're solving a problem, we're solving that problem right now, and within 20 minutes to 60 minutes, we're going to have a solution to this problem, or be well on our way to a solution. In the boardroom, or what other problems that we're dealing with in the fire service, at the executive level, you have to take time to process through things. There's regulatory and other concerns that we need to work through, problems that are long range issues, strategic planning, et cetera, budget items, et cetera. So there's discretionary and non-discretionary time. So when we're in the office, we have discretionary time to work through things more systematically and more thoughtfully. And I like to, use the idea. So if you go into a fire station, there's a light bar that, when a call comes in, the lights tone and a scroll goes across and says, engine 701, there's a fire. Off you go. And the crew bounce up and off they go. Well, in my office, in admin, there is no light bar.
There's none.
There's no light bar, not even a little one. And so when emergencies happen, we have to slow down and say, okay, what is this emergency? Do I have time to work through, investigate, and consider what's really going on here? And that's super important at that point, because you run the risk of, people's careers and people's lives and people's emotions, getting trampled on if we're not thoughtful and careful, or disrupting some, regulatory rule or what have you, and getting ourselves in trouble and bringing risk into the organization that otherwise didn't need to be there.
When my husband started to get into the fire service, it was, late 90s, early 2000s. And at that time, firefighters still kind of had this, stigma to it that they're all just dumb firefighters that just run into anything. And I wonder if that has something to do with it. Just that whole, we're just going to rush in. And to the naked eye, that looks like that's all they're doing, but there really is a lot of thought gone into it. But I wonder if that instant decision making and that instant we just got to go in, compared to what you said, where we just come back, light bar, slow it down. Do you think that stigmatism of, and I don't think it's there anymore, but I wonder if part of it came from that, or what are your thoughts on that? Or have you even heard of that?
Well, we wear a helmet to work, right? So. And that's a pretty crappy pejorative, right? So the reality is that what people see on the forward facing is firefighters running into burning buildings, running into hazard. That can seem pretty silly. Like, you must not have a lot of brains in your head if that's what you're choosing to do. But when you start thinking about, when we sit down and talk about our operational context and the work that we're doing on the fireground, a lot of training and preparation goes into that. And, I believe, and I learned this many, many, many years ago, that when something urgent is happening, we don't rise to the occasion. We sink to the level of our training. And that philosophy, which I believe goes way back, it's a Greek philosophy. And that idea it speaks to the importance of preparation before you do anything. So before we go in and fight a fire, when a recruit is coming to the academy, they get 13 weeks of very intense training. Before you become a paramedic, you go to school for almost a year to become a paramedic. So the things that we're asking firefighters to do takes a lot of brains. But the execution on the fireground seems brainless because they're so good at it. They jump off, grab tools, throw an air pack, kick a door, drag hoses and squirt water. Like, it all happens so seamlessly, but there's a lot of choreography and planning and training that goes into the smoothness of that operation. I
think that's a great way to say it, choreography, because it really is almost like a dance. Okay, now this truck's got to take that sector and that one's got to. I was shocked when he started his classes, just the EMT classes, the paramedic
there's a lot that goes into it. And here's something I'll add is, way back when firefighters were learning to be firefighters, all it was fighting fire. Well, the world that we live in has become significantly more complex, and so has the operational paradigm for the fire departments. So we are now truly all hazards: hazmat, technical rescue, fire suppression, emergency medicine. In some places they do critical care, paramedicine, lots of advanced things. And that's just at the line level. You get into your administrative offices, the world of public administration has become more complex, and the people who are moving from the ranks of firefighter into the chief officer areas have more complex things to manage. And so we're asking them to deal with spreadsheets and data and all kinds of things that require a little bit more education, a little bit more training and learning that you don't get in the fire station. So, as an example, everyone in our executive team in Buckeye has a master's degree. And that's preparatory to doing the work that we're being asked to do. And it's not because it makes us any better than anybody else. It's just work you need to do to gain a better understanding of how to navigate the complexities of the modern world that we live in. So,
can you touch on just really quickly for our audience, for people that are listening? We are located in Arizona, and we have a very unique system compared to the rest of the country when it comes to fire services. Can you touch a little bit on that, like our automatic aid and the mutual aid piece real quick?
Yeah, so our automatic and mutual aid system, our automatic aid system specifically is one of the best in the nation. And right now we have, I believe, it's 30 or 31 jurisdictions that participate in an automatic aid system. And what that means for us is that no matter where you are in the Maricopa automatic aid area, you will get the closest appropriate fire apparatus for your call. So if you're having chest pain, you'll get the closest advanced life support truck to your area. And so the beauty of that is there's an ecosystem that we live in where fire departments are helping each other fill the needs, because you can't have, just your fire stations cover your area. So it's because you're going to be out on a call. And if you're out on a call, who's covering that 3, 4, 5 square mile area? Right. Well, as a system, we do that together. And that's something that back in, I think it was 78, when the architects of that system sat down and said, hey, what would be cool? What would be cool is if we helped each other. Right. And 3 cities jumped on board and said, well, we'll run 1 mile into your city and you'll run 1 mile into ours. And then from that humble beginning, it turned into this robust system. Yeah. And to my knowledge, nobody else in the nation really does it to the scale that we do. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, in case people are listening outside of the state, I know people come and they research it, they come and study it, just because it works so well.
Yeah. Well, and the really important part of that system is, the fact that we're helping each other provides the greatest level of service to the community. That's the most important piece. In order for that to work, it takes a lot of intergovernmental and, fire chief to fire chief, city manager to city manager agreements saying we are willing to do this with each other, because there is a cost to each jurisdiction as that takes place. So the relationship is really important. And that's the politics, right? Is making sure that we're connected.
Yeah. Well, and there's such uniformity to it. So since everybody uses the same academy and we all know our firefighters are coming out of the same standard, you can assume that the truck next door, or you should be able to assume that the truck next door or whoever's coming in or whoever you're going to go help with, that we're all about the same standard, so that there's no, question if I could say something that you're going to interpret it different than I'm going to interpret it.
Well, this is where the partnership is really important, because we've agreed to certain standards, right? We have a set of standard operating procedures that we've agreed is the standard that we will all follow. Yeah. That takes a lot of cooperation across 30 jurisdictions for everyone to agree to do that. And then to your point about the training academy, there's 5 regional academies, teach pretty much the same curriculum. I'd say it's probably about 95% the same. And so you're getting firefighters that are cut from the same mold every single time with the base set of knowledge and training. And then you have, organizational and regional, slight variations here, there, and everywhere across the region, and that's okay. But to your point, when we get a group of trucks together, we call it like a 3-in-1 or a first alarm. When you get the gaggle of trucks coming from different cities, you get all these different color trucks, and it's pretty. It's a lot of fun, and you see folks you haven't seen in a long time, right? Since the last training or whatever. And the beauty of that, though, is that we're all operating on the same sheet of music. So now we come in, the orchestra begins to play, and we're all doing the same thing. It's great. When
I was on council, they gave us a little flip book. It says the NIM system, and I think once a year we had to go through this training, or just who's in charge, what would happen if there was a major incident. And I just saw the cute little thing, and I put it on my shelf, and it really didn't mean much to me. And then we had a funeral for unfortunately, one of our employees who passed, and they pulled out the NIM system, and they said, we're going to start using this to actually start executing and planning a funeral. And I remember I somehow got invited to the table, or I offered to come sit at the table. And I was just shocked that the same system that you're going to execute a fire was the same system that you're going to be able to create the different sectors and the different parts of a funeral. So can you talk about that? How you just think it's going to be over here, and you guys take that same thing and you're like, no, we do this in planning, we do this in events. And so I think the business world could take away some of the things that that whatever NIM stands for. I'm sure they tell.
It's the National Incident Management System.
Okay.
So it is so you're bringing up a really good point, which is it is a robust system. And the beauty of that is it's a system designed for event planning. And whether that event is a planned event or it's an urgent event, so it gets used on large scale wildland fires, et cetera. But it's a way to organize your resources. And then when you break these organizations into these known pieces, everyone's trained on the system, then they know what their job is. So I can say, hey, you're going to be the resource or the logs director. Okay, I know what that job is. And then that job comes with certain responsibilities. So when you get plugged into the system, you already know your position and function in that world, in that organizational chart. And so that's why it's such an important piece. Sounds like you have a question. No, I was just thinking it. So how many pieces are to the, like how many sections are? Oh, gosh, I could not tell you. It could go like forever. Yeah, it can be. So yeah, I'm not. So, and I'll tell you with the NIM system, in our daily operations, we use incident command, which is a slightly less robust system designed to expand and contract more easily. Okay. The NIM system is more robust for large scale planned events or wildfires or something like that, along those lines. So it's a little bit more robust. Incident command is a little bit more nimble, designed for small gaggle of units. So, 2 to 5 units and beyond, into like a 6 alarm. Like you see these big commercial fires we have periodically, or big wildland fires. You can still use the incident command system there. Wow. But the NIM system is more widely used throughout the nation. So I would say the incident command system is used locally, and NIMS is used more throughout the nation. So for the incident command system, like what are your first 3 to 5 steps? Because I feel like, again, this would translate to... Yeah, maybe they have this system, but they haven't named it or they haven't created it in a business. So like when they hear it, I think it could help create processes for people that are listening to outside the fire department. Yeah. So kind of largely the crux of this is creating structure in your organization, right? Or creating organization and structure inside that. When we talk about the incident command system, it's the way to establish control of emergency or an emerging incident immediately. So, for example, the first arriving fire company let's just say it's a house fire, when they first show up and they say, okay, I got to solve this problem, they go through a strategic decision-making process where they assess the event, they size up what the problem is, identify what's happening, assess the variables, and then calculate risk, and then make a decision. What are we going to do, right? Based on these things. Now I know what the emergency is. In my example here, the house is on fire, right? Well, what are my variables? Well, and sometimes you get the message is structure on fire, and sometimes it's not really. Yeah. So, I mean, it seems like seems like such a no-brainer. Well, but so we go back to the light bar. Yeah. Okay. When the tones drop, a dispatch system begins talking to you, telling you the address, telling you the nature of what was called in, etc. So the crew that's responding is already making decisions. What's happening? What's happening? They're gathering intel and gathering information as they go. And and then when they drive out of the firehouse, they look on the horizon. Do I see anything? Right? We're making this decision. We're starting to make decisions from the minute the problem's alerted to us. So I think this is the reason this translates into everywhere, frankly. Every aspect of our lives is we're always being presented with a challenge, a decision, a pivot. And so what do we do with that? Well, we have to start gathering information, sizing up the scale of this event. So to your point, we get called and told, hey, we have a fire. Well, and we look out and we go, I don't see anything. And then you drive down the road, you turn the corner and you go, I still don't see anything. And then you pull up and there's nothing. And we go, well, this isn't a fire, right? What's actually going on? Is it possible that in our world we get misinformation all the time? All the time. Right. And so sometimes we react very profoundly and there's nothing even going on. Yeah. This takes me back to discretionary time. So when you're in the office, you say, well, I don't have to throw the garage door up and go driving down the road code 3. Let me think about this for a second. What questions do I need to ask to try to figure out if this is truly a problem? So On top of that, we have to consider the variables. This part's really important. When we look at a house fire, for example, we pull around the corner, the house is on fire. Do I see flames and smoke? What is that? How much flames and smoke? What type of house is it? Is it a single story? Is it a 2-story? What's the construction type? So we start gathering all this information just in a nanosecond as we're looking out the windshield. And we start making decisions on that. And then then this goes back to the training piece. We have standard actions that we have, and standard actions lead to standard outcomes. So we make we gather this information, we start making some decisions. Somebody comes running up to the truck and says, hey, there's a person still inside the house. So now we weigh our risk. Can we go inside the structure safely and go rescue this person? Where are they located? Where's the fire? You start assessing all those variables, and then you go to work.
What's the saying again? Risk
a lot to save a lot. And then risk nothing at all to save that which is lost. So this model, now the key of that model is we make a decision and we make a determination and we go to work. Then we have to reassess. So we're always reassessing, because in a firefight, we start squirting water and the fire changes, and we have or it doesn't, and that makes an inflection point for us where we have to make a decision. Do I need more resources, or can I start to wind this incident down? Right. Likewise, when we start making decisions in other places, okay, I put a plan in place. Did my plan have an effect? If it did, great, do more of the same. If it didn't, okay, I need to consider what I'm missing, reassess, size it up again, reassess my variables, what's changed, what hasn't changed, etc. And then you assess your organizational risk and you enact your plan. So it's a beautiful, and then of course, when we talked about kind of the NIM system, we talk about strategic decision making. Well, on the fireground, we begin to assess the work that needs to be done. And then we say, okay, I need to put people in different positions. And then I sectorize, which means I'll give them an assignment and say, okay, you're going to be the west sector, or you're going to be interior. And the reason this is important, it's the division of labor and accountability. So I'm sending someone to a specific location to handle certain work, and then I'm letting them go. They're going to tell me what they need next to support the plan. Yeah. So we articulate the plan, we divide the labor up, and we give it to other people, and then we have them report back. And so that's an important organizational piece. With NIMS, it's the exact same thing, much larger scale. We divide it into branches and sectors and divisions, et cetera, all these different layers. And it's about accountability and, management of that accountability and management of the resources and the people, et cetera, inside those sectors. So
it's always about establishing and checking for that span of control, I feel like is what I'm hearing. But it also goes to, okay, so whoever has the control, just making sure the accountability keeps coming back. But I also think I've never seen anybody trying to micromanage on a fire. I don't think you can if you're doing it right.
Well, here's the thing. What does micromanage require?
A lot of energy to focus.
Sorry, that's an unfair question. Yeah. I guess what I was gesturing toward was this idea that micromanagement means I have to be in your business. I have to see you. I have to be on top of you all the time. You walk into a fire, and it is not like the movies. Yeah. It is pitch black. You can't see anything. I might be able to hear you, and I might be able to keep my hand on you. So micromanagement goes out the window. The key is, even at the single engine company level, when that crew goes in with a captain and 2 firefighters, the control comes in the discipline you have to stay inside your assignment. So we have to train our folks.
That's so good.
To
say it again.
I forgot what I said.
I hate when that happens. Yeah. It's like, that was so good. It's the discipline to stay.
Yeah. So I forgot what I said exactly, but our ability to function is predicated upon our discipline, the discipline we have to stay inside of our assignment. Yeah. And maybe that's what I said.
I think it's actually really close to what you said. Yeah. The discipline to stay. Yeah.
Yeah. So that idea being that as we have, we can't have a control of you. I can't hold on to you. At a certain point, I have to let you go and do the work. And I can't see you. I might be able to hear you, but I know you're somewhere around me and you're working. I have to trust that you're doing your job. Well, how do we, and this is so important, and I think it transcends the fire service, is trust in high-risk work groups is really critical, right? And fire department is a very good example of a high-risk work group. But but surgical teams, police groups, I'm trying to think of any other place where there's high risk, but even any
military,
the military, any workspace where you have where high reliability is important, the connection in your folks is critical, right? The team trust within that team is really, really important. So much so, we talk about this idea that there's some research that was done that if you take a member off of that team and you replace it with somebody who's not a member, same level of training, but not a member, not a part of the in-group, if you will, of that team, they don't function as well. And it's been documented. So we look at that and we go, okay, so trust is critical. And that trust is because I'm going to have you operate in a zero visibility, high heat, dangerous environment, and I have to trust that you're going to do the work that you're assigned to do, and that you're going to come back and communicate to me when you need to. So that is the foundation. And we talk about leadership on the fireground and high risk leadership and high reliability leadership in a high reliability work group. It's predicated upon the training they do beforehand, building the connection in that group, the trust in that group, and the through effective communication, etc., and then putting it to work and letting people work. So micromanagement is almost impossible. And I've seen fire captains on the fireground who are screamers, and they try to scream and they try to yell, but that's not. It's almost worse in the incident, because the incident is already high stress and high speed. You have to take the energy out of it by trusting your people and letting them work.
Yeah. So with the trust, and you've worked in the firehouses for years, how do you think it's built? I mean, I think we just take it for granted that it just kind of happens slowly and then you're just doing it. But really, like what is it? Is it just the constant training so you get to constantly see it and it's reinforced? Is it the eating together? I think there's very few industries where you're eating every meal. Well, maybe you don't eat every meal, but you're eating 2 meals together at least. Like what part do you think? I think it's all, but what is there studies to that?
I don't know if there's studies, but what I can tell you from my lived experience.
Look into it.
Somebody should research.
Somebody should research. We don't have that problem as much, but somebody should.
Here's what I'll tell you. There's a great book. It is called Restrepo, and it's about a group of Marines that were at this far outpost, and they were in Taliban country. They were in terrible warfighting all the time, and this group of young men were bonded deeply together. And when they went home, all they wanted to do was go back. So there was a journalist embedded with them, and this journalist was writing this piece and talking about these Marines and the connection they had. So, and one can assume that the reason they wanted to be back together is the connection they felt together, the trust they felt with each other. Going home, now you're alone, and you don't necessarily have that connectivity with people, the same connection you had. So similarly in the firehouse, we play together, we train together, we eat together, we tell stories, and oftentimes it leads into time outside the fire service, right? Outside where we hang out together and we're going to barbecues and spending time with our families together and stuff like that. One of my favorite memories is my first fire company. Three of us on the crew all had kids around the same age. And they came to the fire station, and these little babies crawling around on the disgusting fire station floor. They all lived, but this time we had together, and our wives got to know one another, and we just had this community and this connection. And the amount of work that you're willing to do for somebody when you have that connection, right? And the other thing is, and this might kind of go beyond your normal workforce, but you're going into a hostile environment where you run the risk of dying. And so the work that we're doing, the training we're putting in, is so that we can be resilient and not die and not get killed by making a dumb mistake. And I tell people this all the time, young firefighters in particular, like, you are doing this for the person to the left of you and the person to the right of you. Your training is about keeping yourself alive, but also about keeping those around you alive. And from a leadership perspective, this escalates, right? When you become a fire captain, you have 3 people whose lives you're responsible for. And then when you move up to a battalion chief, you have, 16 to 110 people, or however many people. It can be a large number of people whose stewardship you hold. And then you become the fire chief, you have a whole fire department. And so there's the,
and their families.
And right. And so
You really can't exclude it.
Yeah. The people connected to your firefighters have a stake in their well-being. And so, you had asked me before a question about wellness and health and wellness. And so this speaks to that, right? Because going on fires is one thing we do. Right. It's one of the many things that we do. And I told you before, we're in an all hazard situation now. We do everything. So
what's the percentage
of fire?
Of calls. Fire to medical. We'll just use those.
I'm going to go broad here because everywhere it's a little bit different.
Right.
But I would say
Every truck's
it's
different.
like 90% medical and 10% other, which is commingled with fire and rescue, et cetera. And that's pretty common across the country, I would say, but definitely in our neck of the woods. And so we talk about the impact that this job has, right? When I tell a young firefighter, hey, your life is on the line, that puts a pretty heavy burden on them. And, you're in charge of the guy sitting next to you and the gal sitting on the other side of you. You're in charge of their life. That's a big deal, right? And so that, so what are you going to do about that? As a leader, our responsibility is to provide the tools, the training, et cetera, the apparatus, and a healthy environment. And, I had an old fire chief say, we hire good people. Give them the tools, give them the training, and get out of the way. Yeah. Right. And that goes back to trust, right? The fire chief has to trust all of the membership of their organization to do their job, to show up in the right way and be effective and serve the community with integrity, et cetera, and to be doing their training and to preparing themselves. So there's this web of trust that has to happen in the organization for us all to be successful. So going back to, I don't want to lose this point about wellness. We talk about holding people accountable for training so that they stay alive. But it's also, how do you hold people accountable for their health and wellness, right? There's things on this job that I don't know the exact ratio, but most people in their lives might see 3 dead bodies, right? Firefighters in a career will see somewhere between 100 and a couple thousand, like depending on where you're working. And that's a lot. That's a lot to see. And we're not just seeing, morgues on a slab, dead bodies on a slab, a cadaver on a slab. We see them in all kinds of horrifying situations, which leaves a mark. And it can be hard to know how to manage that. And so I think the fire service has gotten a lot better about having this conversation and acknowledging that there's a health, that part of our wellness is it's physical health, it's mental health, it's spiritual health, it's emotional health. And if you want to be, I as a young firefighter, I was like, I'm just a big tough firefighter, I can handle anything. And I didn't think about any of that stuff. Yeah. And it wasn't until years later that I began to realize, this is like when you're building a table, you put down a layer of lacquer on it, and then you put down another one and until you have a thick coat of lacquer. Well, every incident you respond to where you see these things, experience these things, smell these things, et cetera, it adds a layer. And if you're not sanding it down, if you're not doing some work to get rid of some of that burden, it eventually can, everyone's different. The thresholds are different for everyone.
Yeah. Well, and I know when we got involved 20, almost 30 years ago, it really was just get in and out of the fire safely. And that was about it. With 9/11 and some other stuff, some of the cancers started to pop up, and now we're seeing with just the different materials that are being used in houses, all the synthetic stuff it was just, again, don't die in a fire or, or car accident. And now there's so much involved in the mental health, whether it's how do we, keep you guys safe from things you're inhaling? How do we store our equipment differently? How do we store turnouts? It's such an involved topic that went from not ever talked about to where we are now. Yeah. Do you want to touch on some of the, because I don't think people would, I think they'd be shocked with the things you guys have to talk about. Yeah. Prepare for, again, this isn't just, you're going to go home. Hey, let's make sure you go home and you have a good retirement later too.
Right. Well, right. We want our civil servants to do a career and to ride off into the sunset, right? And enjoy their pensions, et cetera. And well, how do you get there? And,
Right.
and so some of the things that we talk about cancer, the prevalence of cancer has skyrocketed, and heart disease is still the number one killer of firefighters. It's
Really?
right there with cancer,
Wow.
as it's right below it. And heart disease makes sense, but it's a silent killer. Like why? Like everyone knows if you have a firefighter who's a little bit rotund, you go, okay, that guy's clearly not taking care of themselves. But the reality is that high blood pressure and what's that stuff called? Hypertension and other kind of circulatory diseases creep up on us all. And the stress of the job is part of what does that. Well, where does the stress come from? And listen, I'm not an expert in any of this stuff, but this is what I've gleaned over the years, right? So the sleep deprivation, is a big part of that. When you're not getting adequate rest, appropriate rest, it causes, endocrine issues, et cetera, right? It leads to diabetes, it leads to heart disease, et cetera. So I say all that to say that the wellness of a firefighter is not as simple as you said, just don't die in a fire. That's one thing, but it's how are you managing your nutrition? How are you managing your sleep? What is the work rest cycle in a fire department, right? If we're working, a 24/48 or a 48/96, or like what's a healthy amount for someone to be away? Because it's funny because guys are like, oh, I love a 48/96 because if you're at a slower station, like, oh yeah, I get 4 days off and I'm only at the station for 2 days. But
I sleep overnight.
Yeah, but being at a station for 2 days, it's a long time away to be outside of your family. So the other piece of this is when you come home, what burden has that been on your family? And I know that like all this can sound like I'm like, this is all horrible and whatever. It's not. It's a structure and a system that we have in place that's very effective has been very effective for a lot of reasons. But what's important is that as leadership, and this is kind of I guess this is the big takeaway for me is a leader, it's my responsibility to be looking at these systems and if it's unhealthy for our firefighters, if it's unhealthy for our people, wherever industry you're in, you have to really consider, is this the right thing for us to be doing? And moreover, is there a way for us to do this differently to help people be healthier, mentally, physically, emotionally, et cetera? What tools are we providing? And the important part of that to me is if we're investing in our organization, we're putting money into these programs to help people be healthier, we're going to have a better workforce, less call outs, less injuries, et cetera. And people are going to enjoy working there. That's important, right? We want people to come to work and enjoy what they're doing. We're not, these aren't like, the salt mines or something. We're trying to, digging salt out by hand. We want people to feel like the work they're doing is gratifying and that the employer gives a crap about them.
So there's so many good takeaways from being in a firehouse. What is there a tendency now that you're kind of more on the office side and you've switched over to the forever business? Because I call government work the forever business. We're building for 100 years. Is there a tendency to kind of say, oh, that doesn't belong, that's not for here? Were you able to keep and maintain some of these, where's the chain of command or in control? I'm not going to micromanage, trust, mental health, how I'm viewing my employees. Has it been easy for you to take those same mindsets and tools and bring them into the office? Or is there a tendency to get around other office people, whether it's, from the city office, all the different departments, to just kind of slip into their culture? Or, you know what I mean? Is there like a culture battle of, no, if you say you're going to do that, I got to trust that you're going to do it. Or, or is there a... Yeah. So I'm just kind of curious if you have any thoughts on the translation of one to the other, or for the business world.
Yeah. So it's interesting is when I came out of the field, that was an eye opener for me. I didn't understand how to delegate office work. And so a perfect example is I came in and everything that I had ever been assigned before was my responsibility to do. And I had a management assistant and she goes, well, what do you want me to do? And I'm like, I don't know. What do you do around here? I don't even know. Right. So I didn't know what the work was.
This is a shared list?
Yeah. I was like, this is going to be great. Here's a bunch of things. So, but I didn't understand the work. And so that's part of there's a transition for officers in the fire service who are going from the field into the office. They don't necessarily understand the work that they're required to do. They've never been exposed to it. How could they?
Right.
They might be perfectly capable, but we have to train them. It's like anything else that we do. We got to train them and teach them the way. Well, for me, that was an awkward kind of first time. I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't understand what was expected of me. And so I had to learn, kind of through the school of hard knocks, right? And I had an MA who was super helpful, and here's some things that you could do. Here's some things I can do to help you be successful. And that was profound. The other thing, which we already spoke about, was the speed at which decisions need to be made. When we talk about, and this is a really important principle, I've read, Brene Brown and I have become best friends. She uses the expression clear as kind. And so when I would hand my MA something and I'm like, hey, do you got 20 minutes? And she's like, that's 2 days worth of work.
Do you have 2 days?
Yeah. So understanding what was a reasonable expectation, right? I had this clock in my head. This has to be done right now. Understanding how to navigate emergencies versus non-emergencies, prioritizing tasks and all that stuff. And then the other piece of this was when you have work. So in the fire department, or in the fire station rather, when my day was done, I literally took my coat and hung it on a hook and took my helmet and set it on a shelf and walked away. And somebody came in behind me and they did the job and carried on, and the trucks kept rolling and all this stuff kept happening. Well, once you move into admin, the pile of papers that are on your desk, the inbox in your email, it doesn't go away. And there's nobody who's going to come and take care of it for you while you're gone. So you go on vacation or you go whatever. And that was a dichotomy that I wasn't prepared for. And so learning how to set boundaries and learning how to set expectations and learning how to set an agenda and a priority list for what's critical and what's not critical,
and a playlist to help you get all that done.
And then moving through that, right? A music playlist, right? You got to have your neural beats.
Yeah.
And so trying to figure all that out, there's a learning curve there. Yeah. And so some of the systems we have in place, like strategic decision making, helped me a lot. I was like, I know how to work through this. I'm going to make a decision and work at the variables and work my way through it. Yeah. That was helpful. Having mentors who came before me, who I could call. I call them phone of friends, right? I would call a chief and say, I need a chief chat. Let's talk. Here's the problem I'm facing. I don't know what to do with this. Yeah. And so that was super helpful, being able to use that. And I don't know in private industry if that exists. So when I say that, I mean like the kitchen table concept became phone calls, right? I don't have a kitchen table to sit down and talk through a problem, but I can call somebody up and go, hey, I'm having a wicked problem. I don't know what to do with this. Oh yeah, I've been there. Let me talk to you about it. So that brotherhood, sisterhood is super helpful and is part of that network of people we can call to tap into. I have friends in Florida and California and New York that I call and say, hey, you're outside my network, so I need to tell you something scandalous. Right. I need to work through this, but I can't talk about it in my own system because that's not cool. But I can share with you outside, and we can have you can help me work through some of these challenges. So that's a real blessing of this industry that I think is that we need to tap into more when we get into those leadership positions.
So you bring up a good point of, and I think one of the questions alludes to that is, as the fire department has evolved and your own leadership has evolved, how has the view of leadership or the concept of what you thought leadership was, how has that evolved not only for yourself, but within the industry itself?
Well, I think that, I talk about Brene Brown, right? And I talk about us being more emotionally intelligent. When I was a young Marine, I was a corporal and in the Marine Corps. And to me, leadership was yelling orders, right? That's what I was taught. That's how I was taught to do it. Yeah. And so I'm like, you, Private Schmuckatelli, go do the thing. And I would just, point and direct, and that was leadership. And then sometime at that point, my wife, I was involved with a Boy Scout troop. And so I'm treating these Boy Scouts like little privates.
Oh, no.
And my wife's like, you can't do that. You can't talk to them like privates. And I'm like, heck, I can't. And watch me. And so I began this journey of discovering more nuanced leadership. And now what I've come to realize, in having had some seasoning and time and working through this, is that leadership isn't about my style. It's about what every individual in the room needs to be successful. So I realized that, firefighter A and firefighter B and, Chief B and Chief C, they need something different to be successful. And if I'm going to be successful, it doesn't do me any good to just take one leadership style and try to squish that in to this. I need to help them be successful. Mm-hmm. And it's a work in progress, right? I'm, coming in, learning, figuring out how people operate, having the courage to have hard conversations and work through those difficulties. It all takes work. Mm-hmm. And the one thing that I've discovered that I think is fascinating, I went into a group of fire chiefs one day and I said, sometimes I feel like I don't belong, like I have imposter syndrome. Like, how did I get here? And they go,
Still?
About certain things.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay. Right.
Absolutely. Yeah. 28 years into this business and I'm still like, why
am I here?
Like, how do I get to do this job? Why am I the guy doing this job? Right. Yeah. Am I equipped? Right. There's moments when we have fear that we're not enough. And it's normal. When that's what I figured out is these chiefs all look to me and they go, oh yeah, you too. Like, we all feel that way at times. And the reason I bring that up is because I was recently having a conversation with somebody about they were going to go be a fire chief somewhere. And I said, well, that's a very hard, kind of scary job. It's a lot. And, the courage is being able to do it even though you're scared. And I realized talking to all these different people that everybody's has a little bit of apprehension about everything that they're doing. And there's always, and we talk about like, what's the fear? Well, I'm afraid I'm going to fail. I don't want to fail. I want to be good. I want to be good at my job. I don't want to fail. And so if that's the case, well, okay, do it and then figure it out. And I will tell you that failure is a good thing, right? Failure is part of the learning process. And so I don't remember what your original question was, but I'm on fire. When we talk about how we're going to be successful, well, success isn't just automatic. You don't just do things and have success. You work through challenges, and some of those challenges are outside of our scope, and some of those are outside of our capacity, and that's okay. Yeah. So we leverage the people around us. We leverage teams. We try to work through it. So when I was taking this position in Buckeye, I called one of my chiefs, and I said, "Hey, chief, here's a question." I go, I am afraid. They're going to ask me to build fire stations. They're going to ask me to do things I had not had experience with yet. And he goes, well, how long have you been with Phoenix? I said, well, I got 25 years in the business. And he goes, what are you afraid of? I was like, well,
never built a firehouse.
I've never done this before. I don't want to fail at it. And he says, well, I've been a fire chief for 11 years. I've never built a fire station. And I'm like, and that doesn't help me. But what he was pointing to was this idea that there's going to be first times for everything. And he goes, have you ever managed a project? Well, yeah. He goes, it's that. He goes, figure out who knows what they're doing and talk to that person. You got this. You'll be fine. And I've built a fire station with the help of a whole group of people, a CIP team and all kinds of people and contractors, et cetera, right? It turns out I wasn't the one who had to do it by myself. So the fear that we put up is these ideas and these concerns that sometimes are not even real. We manifest them in our own heads and they get in our way. And so acknowledging that and saying, it's going to be okay. I'm going to do it scared and we'll work with, I'm going to lean into the fear and just do it anyway. And we'll work through the challenges one by one as they come. And there's no light bar.
Well, and earlier when they're training you, whether it's your EMT class or your paramedic, a lot of your failures can equal death. Yeah. So there's a slightly different fear of failure that's being drilled in your head. Right. But again, it's something you take with you. Like, okay, I was trained this could injure me. This could injure that person. So it's that same, we're just pulling it into the office, and that doesn't quite translate the same.
Right.
Failure in that one might look a little bit different, but maybe it isn't.
What's what is behind fear, right? It's a physiological response that goes way back in our forefathers who were being chased by rhinoceroses. There's no rhino chasing you, right? So once we realize that, we can go, oh, I'm not going to die. Yeah. I just need to work through this decision. But there are real consequences, right? Real consequences of being made to look foolish, real consequences of public failure, or of a system failing in the whole entire department, losing money or spending money where they shouldn't have spent or what have you, like all kinds of different things. and risk to the organization in lots of different ways. And so,
well, and it does break down perhaps trust, and it does break down the other things that create the speed of what you can accomplish within the organization. So if I fail, maybe it's not the worst thing, but am I going to lose competent? Like somebody's going to think I'm not as competent.
Yes.
Somebody's going to think. So some of it is legitimate. Maybe it's not death, but again, to your chief friend's point, well, I've not built one. So as much as I want to say that, in the reality, you're still further than I am. If you even built one and you had a little hiccup, that was more than what I've done.
Right.
So,
and every one of those things is learning.
Yeah.
So I train a little jiu-jitsu, and the lesson I've learned, there is no losing. There's only learning. Mm-hmm. Right. Every time you get choked out or tapped out or caught in a submission, okay, well, what did you do wrong that set you up there?
Right.
The person, we're all growing at different rates, and we're going to get caught in submissions every once in a while. So tap out, reconfigure, and get back going. Yeah.
So you started a podcast.
Yeah.
How old's your podcast? What's it about?
Started in 2019.
Okay.
And we're, I don't know.
7 years?
Something like that. I feel like I should have more episodes. So I have a little over about 120 episodes. Yeah. But for as many years as it's been, I feel like it should have been more. But anyways.
Well, so we were in the car and we were leaving a baseball game. We're just going down the freeway, and, his phone just picked up wherever he had left off my husband, and we're just listening. And I'm like, I know this voice. Where do I know this voice? And I finally looked at him. I go, what are you listening to? And he said, oh, Rayne's got a podcast. I'm like, oh my gosh, what? I do know this person, and I do know this voice. And you have like a very smooth night DJ kind of stuff. If I did not know, like, I would have thought you had a career being a DJ in a past life or something. It was very like soothing.
That's probably why I didn't. Just my command radio voice.
Is it? So tell me, why did you start it?
Oh, gosh, so way back in the day. Well, here's why I started the podcast. There's a connection to a couple things here, but I was assigned as the captain at the Command Training Center in Phoenix, and in that role, there was always we did a lot of training, a lot of command level training, and so there was lots of senior members of the organization in there all the time, assistant chiefs, deputy chiefs, battalion chiefs, etc. Mm-hmm. And there was a time when I realized, like, man, you guys are having conversations about things I'd never heard before, and I was like, man, that's fascinating. So I went to my boss and I said, hey, we should start a CTC podcast. And he goes, you should do that. And I was like, no.
Like, I've never done a podcast.
No,
I might fail.
I'm a big chicken, and I am not doing that. And I'm like, I'm just a junior captain in the organization. I am not the one to do that. And I didn't have very good vision, right? I just had the idea, but no follow through, like no extended vision for that. And so I didn't do it. So I waited several years. And finally, I was like, no, I have to do this, and I'm going to do it. And I'm not going to do it under the banner of the fire department. I'm going to do my own thing, and we'll talk about firefighter stuff, but I want to have the personal latitude to do whatever I want with it. I don't want to be tied into the organization. So that's what I did. And it started off, so it's called the Fireground Fitness Podcast, and it initially was a blog. And that blog was started when I was working in the fire station, and I did all these workouts, and I had a program that was targeted toward firefighters, and very CrossFit-esque, if you will. Mm-hmm. And anyways, so I'm like, well, I like talking about fitness. I think this is great. Yeah. Let's make a podcast about that, and we'll expand it. Well, I quickly realized that, I don't want to just talk about fitness. That's so limiting, and I feel like that conversation's been had by a billion people. I go, what I want to talk about is the journey that firefighters are on, or any allied professional, and the issues that we're all talking about at the firehouse. So health and wellness, training, strength and conditioning, the physical fitness piece of it, right? Nutrition, etc. The totality of it. So my little hook is we talk about all things pertaining to life on and off the fireground.
Okay.
And so that was the beginning of it, the journey of it, and it's been a wonderful learning opportunity.
So what were your lessons learned of just putting yourself out there? Because it really is an intimidating thing to sit here, you have an idea, you hope people will listen, and then you start doing it, and you're like,
Well, I don't want to name any names, but I immediately got pushback from a senior member of our organization.
Oh, okay.
What is he doing? Is he making money? What is this all about? Blah, 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 blah. And I was like, no, I'm not making any money. I'm losing money. Actually, not a lot, but I'm paying for this to happen. And so the pushback I received, I got a lot of positive feedback from friends and from coworkers. And so there was never a, well, I can't do this. But the initial fear of putting myself out there, I was a little bit nervous about it because, 2019, people were doing social media stuff, but it was just emerging.
Right.
And podcasts were emerging and it wasn't as big of a thing. But I never worried about failure. I just worried about the perception. What would people think? What would other firefighters think if I did this? Would they think Rayne's too big for his britches? Who does he think he is? And what I realized for me was I was like, this isn't about Rayne's opinions. This is about having a conversation with other firefighters and creating a conversation around important ideas. We all have different ideas about different things. We can get people who are researchers, bring them in. Let's have a conversation with researchers. We have people who are expert tacticians. Come on in. Let's talk about tactics. Let's unpack it a little bit and expand the conversation. We're having the conversation anyway. So let's let everybody listen in.
I think you bring up a good point. Sometimes it's not the fear of failure. It's how I fear how it'll be received. I'll fear what people will think. Will anybody listen? So what would you say to somebody that has some of those things going through their mind of not just a podcast, but whatever it is? If they're trying to start the business, they're trying to change jobs, not change jobs, stay in the career, whatever it is, what did that teach you?
Do it anyway. Just do it anyway. Do it afraid.
Yeah.
Do it scared. There's what's the General Patton quote? He says, I wrote it down. A good plan violently executed now is better than a perfect plan next week. Now, I'm talking about violent execution, but I've also heard it kind of turned like a plan 85% today is better than a plan 100% in next week or tomorrow. Yeah. And so part of me is like, hey, you can sit and cook and cook and cook. And that's what I did. I waited. I could have started this podcast in 2016 and I waited because I was afraid. I was like, who am I to do that? I'm just this junior guy. And the more I talked about it and worked the idea over, it became more like, oh, okay, maybe this is a good idea. Yeah. But I was chicken. And so what I would tell you is don't be a chicken, right? Just lean into the fear of it and do it anyway. And if it fails, it fails. Like I've talked to so many people like, oh yeah, I did a podcast. Most podcasts don't go past the 6th episode.
Yay, we've done it more. We've done more than that.
Right. So there's a graveyard full of skeletons of podcasts that were started and never finished. Yeah. Okay, so what? Do it anyway, right? Record the episode and don't publish it if you feel so worried about it. And then you have a catalog of podcasts that you can pull from.
So full transparency, I think it was maybe a 2 year, like a year where I was sitting on it. Like, should I, shouldn't I? What would it be about? What wouldn't it? Then about another year of, well, what would it actually take in getting the equipment and slowly putting it together? But I would say about episode, I think you're spot on for me. I guess it takes me a little bit longer because I do push a little bit harder, a little more bullheaded. It was probably episode 7 or 8. I was like, is this, like, why am I doing this? And then I literally was thinking, is anybody listening? Should I be doing this at all? And 3 people in 1 week, the same week I'm having this, should I be doing this? What am I doing? Yeah. It was either I just listened to it, it was fantastic, or, oh my gosh, that helped me. I really needed to hear X, Y, and Z today. It was 3 of those. And I said, okay, I've got to keep doing this. And people are listening and somebody needs to hear whatever it is. And so I think for me, it was almost a pivot in my mind that it's not even, it's not really, am I doing it? It's what do people need? And if I can be a service. Yeah. So when I took it off of me, am I going to fail? Blah, blah, blah. If I stop, will people not hear what they need to hear? Or will they not have that when it needs to be heard? So I think just getting it off me for a minute.
No, you're absolutely right. I think about that all the time. There's been plenty of times when I'm like, I gotta stop. I can't. I don't have time for this. I don't have time for this. I'm too busy. I got this. I got that. Yeah. And then I'll get an email or a text message or a phone call, and it's just like you said. And I think about I'll call it the allegory of the starfish. You know this stupid story?
Yes, somebody just told me this one. That's really weird that you would say, but tell people because it was the first time I'd heard it. It was just a week ago.
Okay. Well, there's a weird weather system and all. For some reason, the tide goes way out and it left hundreds and hundreds of starfish on the beach. And this guy's walking down the beach and he sees all the starfish and he sees a person down the beach. One at a time, he picks up a starfish and he pitches it into the ocean. And the guy gets down to him and he says, "Hey, what are you doing?" He's like, "I'm going to throw these starfishes back in the ocean." He goes, "You can't possibly throw the thousands of starfish all back in the ocean." And he looks at him and he leans down and he picks up one and he pitches it into the ocean. And he goes, "I'll save that one." Yeah. So I think the idea of, if we have one listener or one person who listens and gets something from it, great. If people are not into it, then okay, that's up to them. They can choose to listen to something else. I have, you know how many podcasts I have in my catalog? I listen to 2 or 3.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, oh, I forgot about that one. And I go back and listen to a podcast that I hadn't listened to in a while. So I recognize that about myself. So why wouldn't that be the case for everyone else? So you put out the content, and if somebody wants to listen, wonderful.
Yeah.
And if they don't, great. That's wonderful too. They can find something else to do. They get a vote. They get a vote too.
Yeah. So as we were wrapping this up, as you look back on your career in the fire service and now in leadership, what do you hope people will say the impact you've left behind, or what are your final thoughts? You get to pick your final question.
Well, for me personally, I came into this industry to provide service to the community. And that has been the cornerstone of what I've been doing. And what I want people to understand, when I leave this organization, I'll be leaving as a leader at that level in the organization. So Mrs. Smith, will never necessarily have my contact directly when it comes to that. So what I want is, I look at leadership through the lens of service to the men and women in uniform on the line. My job is to help them be successful through equipment, through training, through resources, etc. So. And I care a tremendous amount about that happening. So if the firefighters, that's really who I care about. The rest of the legacy is merely interesting. I want the firefighters who worked in an organization with me, I want them to realize how much I care. And so when I walk out the door, I want them to go, "And that guy cared about us." And that's because of what I want them to see is the actions that go into that and to feel the repercussions of our caring. So for me, that's really what it is. I want them to know how much I care. And so, as a final thought, I think that we as leaders, wherever you are leading, and I think that, the expression that comes to my mind is lead from where you are. So whether you're a backseat firefighter, you're a construction worker, you're your hands on a hammer every day, whatever it is, you have opportunities to provide leadership in your organization. And if you're the CEO, you have a tremendous responsibility to develop and coach and bring up those behind you, help them be successful, and help them learn how to provide leadership at whichever level in the organization they're at. And that's all I got. Thank you.
Well, Chief, thanks so much for coming in. We really appreciate it. Thanks for tuning in. We hope you enjoyed or took something away from the briefing room. If you have, we'd love it if you would like and share. Podcast comes out every first and third Tuesday of the month. Subscribe and tune in next time. Thanks so much.
Thank you.